My name is Jordan Thomas from the Jordan Thomas Foundation, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Jordan, how are you, man?
Man, all good, all good. Busy and but really all good stuff, fun stuff I get to do in my life. I'm just at a fun point in my life where I get to do stuff that fills me up, and I don't have to do
Yeah.
anything I don't really want to do, you know?
Well, tell me about what it is that you're doing that fills you up and has you being so happy right now.
Yeah, man. So first and foremost, all the work that we're doing at the foundation. I mean, we're just growing like a weed, and we're able to impact kids' lives. And we've got about 150 kids that we'll provide prosthetics for until they reach adulthood. And not just that, it's like we've developed this community and support network and mentorship and scholarships. And we're just coming alongside these kids and developing a community of people that have been through a whole hell of a lot, that have perspective, and there's just it's filled with love, man. That's the driving force of it all. It's just love and community, and that's a pretty awesome thing to be a part of.
That is, and congratulations to you for taking something that was not such a positive thing and turning it into something that's ultra positive. For people that are listening, I obviously know your story, but I think that we're going to need to go into your story so that people
Yeah.
understand what where this foundation was born and why. So, do you mind telling your story a little bit?
Sure, totally. I mean, the story all started in August of 2005. I was just a kid that was going scuba diving 7 miles off the coast in the Keys, and I hopped into the water and I was on the surface, and it was real choppy and windy that day, so the swales were massive, and um, somehow I just kind of kept creeping closer and closer to the boat, was getting closer to the boat, and my mom saw how close I was getting, and the fear was that the boat would crash down and come down on top of me. And so, just in an instant, she gunned the boat to try to get out of the way, and prop pulled me in, and I knew what had happened instantly. Like I looked down, and my fins were gone, and I just saw blood in the water, and I knew what had happened, like pretty instantly.
Wow. And so, what did happen is you lost both your legs.
Yeah, that's right. And so that made for one hell of a ride home. It's 45 minutes on the boat, and I'm really lucky that both my parents are physicians, so they knew, how to apply tourniquets with, I mean, croquis, towels, like everything we had to just try to limit the bleeding as much as we could. And man, I'll just tell you, it was so close to going the other way, and it didn't. And so for me, was really lucky to survive, and I was an able-bodied 16-year-old kid, right, that was born into a circumstance, like where I knew I would have access to the best prosthetics possible. When I learned that kids didn't, I tell you, Tom, it was like it wasn't like God didn't speak to me in the middle of the night. I was just a 16-year-old kid that was like, man, this is ridiculous. This is not
Hmm.
right. And so I made the decision right then and there as a 16-year-old in the hospital to say, we're going to do something about this. We're going to be a force for good for these kids that can't advocate for themselves. And I just celebrated 20 years, and 2005 as a 16-year-old kid. That's where it all started.
That's awesome. So when I read, I've read up on you and over the years, and one of the things that I kept continuing to come up on is that it was like you said that insurance doesn't pay for running legs, right?
Mm.
So the prosthetics is the problem, or was the problem when you first got started here, that just any prosthetic was difficult for kids to get, or was it like ones that are, I mean, like you're a golfer. We need to go into your golfing history there, but I'm assuming that was one of the things that you wanted to do immediately is like, I want to get back out on the golf course. You're going to need special prosthetics for that. And was that the problem, or just any prosthetic at all for kids?
Yeah, so it's changed somewhat. So a lot of amputees that are active, they have a prosthesis that's specific to the activity they do. And so for me, I'm a big golfer, and so I have a set of legs that I only play golf in. Some kids really active need a running blade so that they can run. Some swimming legs, like we've done all kinds of specific legs for activities. Those are never, ever, ever covered by insurance companies because they're not deemed to be medically necessary, which I can think of nothing more necessary in this world
Right.
than giving a kid the opportunity to be a kid and to like
Sure.
participate in life, right? And so a lot of the work that we do at JTF is effectively where we are, Tom, is we've been the people as a nonprofit that have bridged the gap, that have said, okay, insurance industry, that it's okay that you're not providing those, we'll provide them. So now what we're doing is we're kind of a bit more on the front foot in terms of policy and advocacy to say, let's implement some legislation here that's just common sense that everyone realizes makes a whole hell of a lot of sense that kids get prosthetics. And so we've really ramped up at JTF the work that we do on the advocacy front to ensure that insurance companies do pay to give kids access.
Wow. And how many, so you've been doing the foundation for 20 years. How many kids do you think that you've helped so far?
Yeah, I would say probably over 200. And the thing that's unique with us is that we make the commitment until they're 18, right? And so
Mm.
kiddos outgrow their prosthetics similar to shoes, like every 6 to 8 to 12 months. And so it's a long-term commitment that we make to these kids and to these families to be a part of this and that we'll support them. And so although 200 doesn't sound like a ton, it's like we've had some kids that took the very first step of their life with a JTF prosthesis and they walked across their high school graduation stage with a
Wow.
JTF prosthesis. Like,
That's
think
incredible.
18 months to 18 years, and we've been there the whole time.
What what stories have you come across of these children that you've helped that have been the most impactful to you?
And I think the biggest blessing for me is to be of somebody that can help alleviate a parent's stress. When I see the burden that these families went through prior to JTF, like we no longer had a savings account. We had an account that was specific for Liam's leg, or we canceled family vacations for 5 years to pay for our daughter's leg. We put our house on the market so that we could afford a prosthetic for our son. And so to say, hey, you no longer have to worry about that. You no longer have to fight insurance companies. You no longer have to do any of that. We'll be here to support you to meet your child's needs, whatever they may be, until they're 18. I mean, you want to talk about a relief for a parent and the emotion associated with that. That's the most powerful thing for me, and that's the thing that drives me the most is like to be that resource for these parents, and then the impact that it has on the kid's life is, I mean, you just think of the trajectory. It's like prior to JTF, it was on a certain trajectory, and then now with JTF, it's like these kids are out like full send. They're Paralympians, they're college athletes, they're engineers. They're doing this like they have the ability to pursue their passion and what they're meant to do on this earth. And man, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's like you want to talk about like impact and purpose, and that's the reality with my story, man. My story is that of like through loss I found, through loss I gained, and that's the take-home message.
That's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you the most about is just, it's always like kind of extreme stories where you get some of the best advice. And for you at 16 you lose your legs, and then you turn that in a very short period of time. 9 days is what I'm seeing that you were starting on your foundation. But not everybody has such an extreme story, but going through something that extreme, what advice do you have for people that are going through something that is extreme to them? It's not like losing your legs, but maybe they lost their job, or maybe they lost their wife, or maybe they lost some sort of an opportunity or something. What advice do you have how someone can turn something around like you did?
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend to look at me and they think like, oh my God, how did you overcome that? The reality is that everyone has lost their legs one way or another. Mine is very visible, but I don't know what Tom Rowland's been through in his life that's put him on this trajectory. And I think there's this other thing where I think a lot of people, maybe a lot of your listeners or people from the outside, can look at somebody like you that they admire or somebody like me and say, man, they must have something different that I don't have. And I think that's nonsense. I think that through me and my experience in the loss, it revealed the depths and capacity of what I've got. I don't think without the accident I would have found that thing that me and you both have, that next gear of like, and that's been the blessing of it. And my hope is that people can utilize whatever their lived experience is through loss, find those depths of what's true to them and pursue it like hell.
How long did it take for you to I mean, I don't know, I don't want to trivialize it at all, but this is a gift in some way. right? Like what you just described, you've been able to access different parts of your potential, different parts of your personality, different parts of your purpose through loss, right? So in some ways, it could be considered a gift. But at the time, it probably doesn't feel that way.
Mm.
How long did it take for you to have that kind of perspective?
Yeah, it's absolutely not been a linear journey, and even now there are times where sometimes it just kind of sucks. If I'm in a lot of pain or I'm hurting or I'm limited and can't do something because I've got an infection or I've just have limitations given that I've got a disability, it's not always my perspective, but it's somehow the one that I continue to come back to. It's like my anchor is that perspective. And I think for me it took a little while. And there were times where after my accident was really like one of the greatest times of my life because I had so much community and people and support around me for the first time. Like I really felt like viscerally a ton of love and support and people that are willing to like run through a brick wall for me. So pretty early on, I was able to see it as a gift. But then later on, that's not to say that like it didn't creep in this idea of like, man, this just kind of sucks, dude. And so I had to kind of lean into both of like giving myself permission to be like, yeah, man, what you've been through is a very tremendous loss and like it hurts and it's painful and you got to sit in that. And then you can come back to, wow, ultimately the perspective is that of like this is a gift.
What was the draw to the Keys? Like your family, did you go to the Keys all the time, or?
Yeah, all the times. My dad's a big fisherman and like he loves to go lobster and so he does that. He's been doing that with like his group of boys for 30 years. And so, I was like a 16-year-old kid that was like, oh, I'm gonna get scuba certified so I can do this with dad. And that was really my first. I'd scuba dived a little bit, but I had been certified maybe that spring. So I was relatively new. Um, and I always think about it, man. It's like the Keys really well. It's like we had that opportunity to go right, to go into the bay or the Gulf, and then we had the opportunity to go left, and like we chose to go left, man. And it's like I think about that pretty often of like, man, what if we had gone right? And it's wild because I think that would have been the worst option, which is crazy.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, because man, I wouldn't have found the fulfillment and the purpose and the meaning and the reason for why I exist as a human being. I don't put my legs on one single day and not know why I'm meant to be on this earth. And I think, man, there are people that would pay millions of dollars to have that, you know?
So when you have that kind of clarity on your purpose, do you have like like a one? What is your purpose? How would you describe it?
Yeah, to be of service, full stop. And then maybe to be of service to the limb loss community and to families that have endured such overwhelming amount of grief and to be able to use my story to help inspire people and to help sort of them to realize what it is that they're capable of doing, that they're a majority of the limitations they face in their life are self-imposed, self-inflicted, you know?
Well, I do. It's interesting. One of the most I don't know, impactful kind of conversations that I believe that I've ever had with anyone was, do you know who Kyle Maynard is?
Yeah, tell me more. I know his name.
So Kyle Maynard was a congenital quadriplegic amputee. He is, and he wrestled in high school. His arms only came to here, and his legs just past the hip, and he is a truly incredible guy. And he wrestled in high school. He played football in high school. He played line, and he can move well. And he was actually a very good wrestler. And he even went on to do like some strength things where there's different. He could do the bench press. It was more like a fly really, where he put these straps on his arms. There were chains, and then the weights would hang down, and he could do a fly, which they called a bench press, but he set the world record in that. And he's just gone on to do a lot of different things. He wrote a book. I read that book, and I thought, this is incredible. I'm a wrestler. I like this guy's message. It's really incredible. His book was called No Limits. And so I reached out to him, and we did a TV show together. He was on Saltwater Experience. It was really awesome. It was a great time because my kids were able to go on that shoot with me, and they were around Kyle. And Kyle was able to do everything. Like
Yeah.
he can eat with a knife and a fork. He can do everything. He doesn't have any hands or anything. But one of the conversations that I had with him was we were talking about disabilities or handicaps or challenges.
Hmm.
And he just looked at me and he goes, "Oh, I don't have a disability."
Hmm.
He said, "A disability is something," he says, "I see people with disabilities all the time.
Hmm.
Disability is negative self talk. Disability is lack of confidence. Disability is a self imposed thing, exactly what you're saying." And he said, "I don't have a disability. I got challenges. It might take me a little longer to put my socks on." He was like, "You probably didn't even know I wore socks." I was like, "No, I didn't." Uh, but
Yeah.
he's got a great sense of humor. He's really a great guy. But he's like, "I don't have a disability.
Hmm.
I know that I can do anything that I put my mind to." He, like you, has a very clear sense of purpose. He just doesn't have arms and legs, and that conversation really stuck with me because the self-imposed limitations, everyone has them. I have them.
Yeah.
Everybody has them, right? I mean, I'm sure that you have them
Oh
in
yeah.
lots of ways. Like, how big can the Jordan Thomas Foundation get? Well, probably only about like this, right? Well,
Hmm.
says who? Like, you're
Yeah.
putting that on yourself, right? How do you deal with the self-imposed limitations, or how do you kind of when you see that with others, like, what is there advice? Is there something that you can do about that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I mean, it's something that I've struggled with my entire life, and I think it's just some of the like innate natural part of like human lived experiences having to endure and contend with those self-limiting beliefs because we're just conditioned all the time. I mean, I grew up in a world in which it was like, if it's not getting done, it's because you're not doing it hard enough. If it's, like a lot of these things of like that were based in like either I'm defective or I'm not enough or I'm not worthy or I'm not capable of like all of those things. And so it's taken me a long, long time to become aware that those are even exist and then befriend them and get curious about them. Like, what's that about? And then challenging them like, hey man, like there's this internal dialogue that's wearing me out that's saying Jordan Thomas Foundation is only going to get to a certain level. You can't possibly pass legislation in all these states. You can't possibly have every child in America with access to prosthetic, right? But then you begin to challenge that, and it does become that thing of like, well, why not? Why not? And that's where community is critical for me. Is like surrounding myself with like-minded people that are wired similar to like how you are. Of like, okay, how is this possible? If this were to happen, how would it happen? But it's internal. It starts internally. It starts with self, and it starts with like awareness and mindfulness of like what is going on. I think a lot of people just go through life with these like belief systems that don't work for them, but they're not even aware that it's running in the background.
Oh
So
yeah.
for me, I've
And I
had a
think even when you are aware that
totally,
that could be running in the background, there's still stuff running in the background behind that. Like, and
totally,
you find yourself like I find myself being aware of those things and trying to be like, is that, am I just doing that to myself? And you're aware of these things, but they're still happening. They're
yeah,
still happening, like
totally.
to everyone. But
And
what
I
was
think
interesting about what you,
the like exercise that I love with that is like, all right, so like in our judicial system, right, there's a burden of proof, right? Like you got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of your peers that X happens, right? So can you prove to a jury of your peers that you're not capable of doing this? And it's like the evidence only always falls short. And so it's like kind of this thing of like, okay, like maybe that's not true. Maybe there's a world in which that's not true. You know what I mean?
yeah, what do you think? Has there been like one major milestone or accomplishment that you have overcome with the Jordan Thomas Foundation or elsewhere that made you kind of open up to the fact that maybe anything's possible? Or what was the
Yeah,
first one?
hmm. You know, I think, I mean, there truly were, this is insane to say, like, there were truly people in my recovery process that, like, doubted my ability to get back to doing the things that I wanted to do, like ski or golf. Like, they would literally, like, verbally say, hey, I don't know if that's reality. Like, you may need to
Th-
adjust to your new reality.
Those are doctors or what?
Yeah, I had one doctor, like, I remember this cat, like, clear as day. And dude, that dude, every rep that I did in rehab, every hard step that I took, like, that guy was with me. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, overcoming that and getting back truly to like walk, golf, skiing, and then doing all the things that I do in my life now, like tremendous. And dude, you know what I need to do more of is like give myself a little bit of attaboy for like what I have been able to do. I don't do enough of that, I don't think. I think again, like me and you wired in that way where it's always like, all right, man, like what's the next big thing? Like let's go do that. And sometimes it's beautiful to look in the rear view. Like we just had a family reunion, man, where we had 60 families there, 250 people filled up a whole ballroom, and all of those people are there as a direct result of like the work I've committed my life to. And so, you know, things like that, when I see the scale and I see the relief of parents and I call parents and I get to say, hey, don't worry, we'll take care of your kid until they're adults. Um, those are the moments where I'm like really, really proud of what I've been able to
Mm-hmm.
do.
And so tell me about that 250 people. Like, what was that? What was that about?
Yeah, I mean, so like what we found is that like not only is providing the prosthetic device critical for the development and success of these kiddos, but like it's the whole family systems, right? It's like what the parents go through, what the siblings go through, what the kid themselves goes through. And so for us, it's like where we have a real emphasis within JTF now is how do we develop a community of people that can support one another in this journey, right? It's such an isolating thing. It can be such a lonely thing. I mean, after my accident, dude, like both my parents are physicians, right? But they had to go to Google to figure out how to find a prosthetic provider. They had to go to Google. There wasn't like a de facto resource of people. And so for us now, it's like if you're a new family, we're going to partner you with a family that went through something similar 5 years ago that's going to help guide you along this path. And so the real secret sauce of JTF is not that we just provide prosthetics. It's that we develop a community and support system for these families so they can love one another and like support one another on the journey. That's the
And then,
juice.
and then that's what that was. You have all those families come together.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Dude,
amazing.
it's wild, Tom. You got to come to one. I mean, it's like
I'd
there's
love
kids
to.
with there's kids with like no limbs that are just going and sending it, and like there's kids from all walks of life, every race, every ethnicity, like all of it, and they're all. I mean, there are kids that like there aren't people within their community where they see themselves. They're only constantly otherized, right? They're other, they're different, and then they come in and you see the relief of like, wow, that kid's got a special leg like me, and man, the power of that is beyond. And so they develop these relationships and they stay in touch with one another. And that's the real magic is like, that's the ripple effect. Like something I always think about, Tom, is like the greatest thing you can do in your life is to have an impact on someone's life and they never know your name.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just when you were telling me that just before, I was like, I just kind of had this little vision of you just kind of sitting back, letting all this stuff happen, and just kind of watching, just for a
Yeah.
minute, like even just for a minute of just like, this is way beyond me. Like this has
Yeah.
grown into something so far beyond you. That's got to be rewarding, surreal, otherworldly. Like
Yeah.
to see all that happening. Like what kind of feeling do you get when you see that?
Yeah, it's overwhelming pride. It's further affirmation of like this is what I'm meant to do in the world. And then ultimately it's fuel, right? It's like it's the thing that sustains me. So when I'm talking to a legislator or I'm fighting an insurance company or I'm talking to a donor or whatever the case may be, it's like I'm doing this on behalf of all of them that are here with me that don't have a voice, that don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. And so like I'm the tip of the spear for all of these people. Like, let's go.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too, when you're talking about what your foundation is, you know, the secret sauce of your foundation is really it's outside of just the child, and you know, as a parent myself, like I'm a parent of three, and until you are, and honestly, it didn't even happen like when my kids were small or even growing up. Now my kids are all grown,
Hmm.
and you just have so like you just want everything to be okay with them, right? Like I just can't even imagine something happening to my kids when I wasn't even like now I'm aware of that. Like I'm
Hmm.
aware that like it the well-being of my children is like really really super duper important, but I've had to get out of the way, right? Like they're off living their own life, right? But when they're little kids, like you could get blindsided so badly by something like this because you didn't see it coming. Like you're in control of that little child all the time. Like you're stopping them from going across the street. You're keeping them out of trouble, and then all of a sudden something happens. I could see where that could be incredibly, like, just total blindside. Like, now this is happening, I don't know where to turn. That would
Yeah.
seem like, so that would seems like a place where you're really filled a void. Now, to get to that point, I would imagine that your parents had to be kind of an instrumental part of this, because as a 16-year-old, that is a different galaxy. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have kids, you don't have this experience, and really it's taken me even like 25 years of parenting to get to the place where I'm like, wow, that would be really, really something, to have an accident like that. Because at the time, it's not something that's even in the cards. You don't even see it. So how did
Yeah.
your parents help with this?
Man, I mean, I think, the first thing is like my mom was driving that boat that
Yeah.
hit me, and I was with my dad and my mom, and it was the three of us. And so a lot of this like emphasis with JTF around the family system was born out of my own experience of like, yeah, I may have been the one that lost my legs, but I mean, you as a father, there's no question in an instant you would put yourself in the water instead of your kid.
Yeah.
No question, right? And so for my mom, like that's the burden that I've seen her carry throughout her life. My biggest hope for my mom is to give herself forgiveness for all that happened. You know what I mean? But I don't think there's a day where she doesn't think about that and feel some sense of responsibility. Um, but to answer your question, like after the accident, I mean, they were instrumental and huge, and we leveraged their community and allowed the community and their network to like surround us to get the foundation off the ground. But I think the part that they played was well before that, right? I was born into a life of privilege, right? And what they really instilled in their children was that privilege is bestowed upon us to give to others. And so they didn't just talk that talk, they walked that walk in terms of like, there's a very clear moment as like an 8-year-old, I remember driving up Missionary Ridge, and there's a mom with two kids in the rain walking home with groceries. And my mom just says, get the groceries and get in the back. And so I got the groceries, put them in the trunk, sat in the back, drive them home. My mom doesn't say a word about it, but like slips a 500, like $500 on the counter, and we're out. There was no like praise, no pomp and circumstance, no, not even really, we didn't really even talk about it, but like those kinds of things were instilled into me as a kid. And so it was just a natural response at 16 to see a problem, to see that I was in a position where I didn't have to worry about it, and then you act. But I did. I had to rely upon them, to help get all the logistical stuff sorted out around what a foundation means.
Wow, that's heavy, man. With your mom.
Yeah.
So much of like this podcast and the guests that we have are fishing related, diving related, boating related. Like it's kind of an outdoor type audience, and a lot of people that are listening to this right now have been exactly where you were, right? Like lobstering, hundreds, thousands of times, and no accidents have happened. But once an accident has happened, maybe you have a different perspective over it of like what could have been done, or what are good practices that keep something like that from happening on just a safety level, like as far as being in the water around boats with people that you trust, right? Like that's a big part of it. Like, how do you trust somebody more than your parents?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that? Like boating safety.
Yeah, man, I think it's just something that we've got to have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation and like awareness of. I think a real natural tendency for a listener is sort of to maybe, if I'm listening and this wasn't my lived experience, is to think maybe, oh, they were inexperienced boaters, and so they just made a dumb mistake. The reality is that's not true, and that this doesn't always just happen to other people. And I'll tell you, Tom, I probably get 10 calls a year or more that are boat propeller related amputations. I mean, it is far too common. And so I think having a really healthy respect as far as like what a prop can do to someone and how suddenly it can change. Like you make, I think my mom made the right decision. Like the more dangerous thing was for that boat to come down on my head and I'm killed, it breaks my neck or I'm paralyzed, right? So it can just happen in an instant. And I think it just requires that we have this really healthy appreciation and respect um, for what, just the level of injury that can be sustained from a prop, and just like Mother Nature itself. Like the ocean wins, like it's gonna win, and so
Mm-hmm.
we're so finite and so small in comparison to that. And now like my dad still continues to lobster a ton. He's in the Keys all the time, and but he has like all of the necessary like safety stuff on board all the time with him now. Like he's got a bag. I don't even know what it's called, but like he's got all of the necessary like first aid stuff, all of the related like comms, safety stuff. Um, and we were really lucky, man. Like we were 7 miles out, and we just so happened to be on the emergency channel on the radio, and so there was an ambulance waiting on me when we got back to the marina, and then I got airlifted out of there. But
Now
hmm,
you went to Hawks Cay, right?
exactly, yeah,
Isn't that where that's where
yep,
you went in? I mean,
yep,
that's our whole base of operations is Hawks Cay,
yeah.
and so there was an ambulance there, and then you were like, I wonder why they didn't bring a helicopter there, because you probably could land a helicopter on at Hawks Cay, but when we had Jameson Reeder on a couple of weeks ago, he lost his one leg because a bull shark um,
Mm, damn.
basically bit it off on Lou Key Reef, and Lou Key Reef is not very far from where you were,
Mm,
um, a little south. But he went in and he found another boat. He realized, his dad realized that single engine boat that he was in was not going to be fast enough to get him to shore. And so he looks across the reef. He sees this other boat. It was a 36-foot Invincible with triple 350s on it. And he gets his son to that boat and hands his son over to a stranger, his son and wife.
whoa.
And they take off at 75 miles an hour, and they get him to the marina that was the closest one, where they said that that's where the ambulance would be. And then they had to go to Big Pine to get airlifted out. I don't know where do you know where you were airlifted out, where the helicopter actually landed?
Yeah, is Big Pine like that little? It's like a little, just like it's north, right?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit
Yep,
north of that. Well,
that's
well,
where I went.
actually, Big Pine would have been south. So you of Hawks Cay, it was north of where they were, but
Okay.
it'd be kind of south. There actually, it's east and west almost at that place, but it seems north and south because you're going further down.
Yeah.
So you might have gone to like closer to Isla Morada or somewhere. But the hospital, which hospital did you go to? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember the first one, and it was wild too, Tom, because like both of my parents, they're intensive care physicians, so they were there with me, and I got pulled in. I was like on the gurney, and um, the doctor, he clearly was like out of his league, right? It's not a level one trauma center. Like they didn't know, like they knew how to sustain kind of like just slam fluids and try to stop bleeding as much as they could, just like triaging. And my parents were like, they had the awareness of like he's got to get medevaced out of here, like he's got to get flown out of here somewhere else. And they said, I like really clearly remember this, that they were like the trauma helicopter in Miami was like in the Everglades for another trauma, but Jackson Memorial is a level one trauma center, and so they have to have a secondary helicopter. So I
Right.
remember my mom was on one side of the hospital bed, the physician was on the other. She grabs him by the shirt, pulls him in, and is like, "Get another helicopter here now." And so they always turn the blades off, but this is like a hot landing, so they just loaded me in like right away and flew up to Miami and went straight into surgery.
Wow,
It was
that's
intense, man.
incredible, man.
But I'll tell you this,
That's
it was
incredible,
wild,
man.
Tom. Like, at no point did I feel pain after that. And on that boat ride back,
Really?
man, dude, it was the most serene I've ever been in my entire life. The most at peace, the most connected to
Well,
like universe I've ever been.
it's very interesting because Jameson Reeder was telling us a similar story. I'd love to hear your story about what you felt and what that was like. on the way in because we just heard a very similar story a couple of weeks ago. Well, when you say you were in the most serene you've ever been, like, tell me about it.
Yeah, man. I was, I'm lying on my back and my dad's just full bore wide open and my mom had my legs elevated and so I'm just lying on my back and like, dude, I just felt the presence of something significantly greater than me and I was at a place of complete willingness to accept whatever the outcome was. There's a high degree of awareness of like death is kind of right there, it's close. But man, I was at complete peace and surrendered entirely. But I felt the presence of, something infinitely bigger than me, and I like can't be convinced otherwise. And a lot of people, will say, "Well, you were in shock," and you. I mean, I remember everything. My senses were fully attuned. But yeah, I felt like I was being held, and I was in the presence of something significantly greater than me.
Wow. That's
Strong, man.
that's really similar. That's really similar to what Jameson told us, and this is
Hmm.
coming from a kid that I guess it happened 2 years ago, so it's still really fresh. But
Hmm.
people were telling him, you're probably in shock or whatever, and he was like, no, no.
Yeah.
He says exactly the same thing you do. Like, no, I
Hmm.
remember everything. He remembers every single thing, and he said that he looked up and he saw what appeared to be a man on fire. And he was like looking at it like, what is that? And then
Hmm.
he said it was Jesus. And,
Hmm.
and the funniest part of his story, if there's a funny part, of his story, there was a person helping to stop the bleeding and everything.
Hmm.
And he said, I see the light. And this guy said, stay away from the light. Stay away from the light. Like, don't go to the light.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I see the light. And he's like, don't go to the light. but
So good.
it was interesting how how there's two very similar stories right there. I mean, what kind of boat were you in? What did your dad have at that point? Is it a single engine
Yeah.
boat?
No, no, I think it was a double engine, like center console, maybe
Okay.
like 20 something, 30 feet maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
And at that point he hadn't bought his boat. He has one now that he actually keeps in the Keys. But we had like rented that boat for like
Okay.
for the week or week and a half. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. And so you had said that you had just gotten your scuba certification. So were you in scuba gear?
Hmm.
Did you have tanks on when this happened?
I did, yeah. So I went in first because I was like an impatient 16-year-old kid and it had taken us 45 minutes to get out there. I'm like, dude, let's go. And like my dad was getting geared up and was pretty ready. And so I went in and then I was good. And um, it's weird. I don't really, I just remember just kind of being aware that I was getting closer and closer. I was just getting pushed by, the waves or the tide or whatever. And yeah, it just got closer and closer, and suddenly I just, I heard the engine go, and like I said, like I knew immediately, man. My dad hopped in, he jumped off the back immediately because he knew what was going on, and he was using the tip of his spear gun to try to push me away from because he knew how close I was, and he hopped in, man, and I looked at him and I said, "My feet are gone, we gotta go." And he was like, "What?" And he looked down and he came back up, and like there's snapshots right of the day that I remember. Um, and like that look of like the terror on his face was wild. But like they quickly like flipped into like physician mode. So it was like this really interesting juxtaposition, right? Of like there's pretty hysterical as you can imagine, and then there's me, man, that's just like whew, peace. It was a wild kind of combo.
You know what? That's exactly what Jameson said. I mean, it's so strange to hear these stories at such a close proximity to one another, but
Hmm.
he was the one who remained calm. Everyone else
Yeah,
was obviously panicked, and he
yeah,
was the one that remained calm. Exactly what you're saying.
yeah.
That is so wild. Um, so do you ever go back down there? Have you been back down to the Keys since?
Dude, you're my reintroduction to the Keys. I will only go back to the Keys if you take me like fishing on
Hey,
the
let's go.
flats or something, dude. That's
That's
my
right.
only way
We're
I'm
going
going.
to.
And it hasn't been like a conscious thing. And it's not like I've avoided boats. It's just like, nah, I'm just like, I haven't been back down to the Keys, but like, I would love to go, dude.
But your dad continues to go.
Yeah,
And
like they'll
so,
go. Yeah.
but just no interest or like just not the right opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I'm a golfer, man. I want to play golf. I don't really like fishing's cool, but like, dude, I'd much rather be on a golf course. And so I just haven't, yeah, I just haven't been back down. But I for sure would go. And I'm actually thinking like this year, maybe I go back in October, because
Yeah.
that's when he's going to go down and go lobstering with his homies.
Awesome. So what about the golf? Are you better before or after the accident?
Definitely after. I'm definitely,
You're
yeah. So
definitely
I'm
better after.
definitely better. Yeah. Because you just get older. When you get older, you get wiser. It's like you just know sort of the game and how to make it happen. And it's really cool because adaptive golf has become such a big thing. The USGA, so the governing body of golf, has created an adaptive US Open. So I'm the number two double amputee in the world right now. Um,
Wow.
yeah, number three
How much are
American
you
overall.
playing? How much
I
are you
play
playing to be
probably.
number two in the world?
Yeah, I play like 3 days a week. I'm finishing my masters right now, so that's taking a lot of bandwidth. So I'm doing my masters and then JTF and then golf on the side too. So it's a lot of juggling. But to get ready for like big tournament season, which it's over now, luckily, I mean, I'm playing like 5 days a week minimum. I'm working pretty damn hard at it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what are you getting your master's in?
Clinical mental health. So to
Okay.
help grow out the mental health resources that we can offer our families.
And did you have to have any sort of undergraduate to get into that program, or that's just you can just go to graduate school in that?
Yeah, so I got my undergrad degree at Rollins College, and then I kind of went the way of like private equity, venture capital, thinking that that's what I needed to do, and then really suddenly realized after a couple of years of trying to grind that out that like, dude, I'm not meant to do this. This isn't my passion, and so I went full time back into JTF, and like we've just gone to the moon ever since. But I really feel really passionately and strongly based on my lived experience and on those of our kids and families that this mental health thing is something that we've got to really invest in. And so I kind of put my money where my mouth is and said, this is something, if I want to do this, I need to go be qualified to do this.
Tell me about the time when you're in um, investment. What'd you say?
Yeah, like private equity, venture capital
Private
stuff.
equity. You're in
Yeah.
venture capital and private equity. Tell me about. I mean, I know for myself there was a moment in my life to where I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing this over here, and I go full on into fishing, and
Yeah.
it was like a burn the boats moment. Like, tell me about that moment for you, because it's
Similar.
powerful, man. Like
Yeah,
when
dude.
you decide that, like, I want to know what it's about.
Uh, 100%, man. I mean, it was similar for me. It was definitely a burn the boats moment. There's the slow degradation within your soul when you realize that you're meant to do something and you make some dumbass choice to do something different. There's that degradation, dude, where you're like, bro, there's finally it comes to a head and there's a point where you're just like, dude, I'm just not doing it anymore. I will not do it another day, and I'm gonna go do this thing that I know I'm meant to do, and I'm gonna honor that, and I'm gonna go full bore, full bore.
Was there a trigger? Like, what was it? What happened for you
No,
to just have have that realization?
yeah, it like wasn't like one defining moment, I guess. It was just like, yeah, the degradation had just got to a point where it was like, bro, what am I doing? Just like that awareness, like waking up. It was literally like waking up and just being like,
Hmm.
nope, I just don't want to do this anymore. This isn't where I want to put my energy and my passion, you know? And I made
And
the decision.
what is the difference? Like, obviously, it's been great. You're obviously
Mm,
super happy. You're very
mm.
passionate. You're very clear in your purpose. Compare that to where you were before.
Yeah, man. I mean, every day I wake up, dude, and I'm like a rocket. I'm like ready to go rip it, like like mine looks different than yours, but it's like still driven by the same thing of like there's absolute clarity and certainty. So for me, when I was working in that world, it was just like I was unhappy, I was irritable, I was not fulfilled, I didn't have any purpose or meaning, and I didn't care about another transaction or another investment. I just literally was like, so what? Like, what does another 100 grand do, or 10 grand, or whatever the figure was? It was like, that ain't that ain't the mission here. This life is not meant to be a gross acquisition strategy. And my whole life was predicated on that. Like initially, like I was conditioned to think like, bro, I got to go acquire more stuff, and then maybe if I acquire enough stuff, I'll finally be enough. Dude, talk about an exercise in futility, man.
Yeah, I don't think that you're alone in that. I think that there's so many people that feel like that and that have this kind of like simmering kind of desire underneath to and honestly that's one of the reasons I started a podcast, because I wanted to hear these stories about people's change. I mean, there's so many people who were on some kind of path and they decided, just very similar to the story you just told, that this is not what I'm supposed to do, and I'm supposed to be a professional backpacker. Like I am supposed to do something that's so wild. Like for you, you had a real clear purpose, but some of these other people are just like, I just feel like I want to buy a sailboat and sail around the world. And some of these people have started a YouTube channel and they have millions of people watching them, and they're making a great living doing it, and they're doing exactly what they want, and they were on the same path. And I think that there's so many people that have done that successfully, but I think that there's so many people that are afraid of that for whatever reason. Like I know what the reason is. It's scary, right? Like to say, I'm not doing this and I'm going to do this. This is certain and sure and a clear path to some sort of success, and I'm doing fine at it, but I'm throwing it all away and I'm doing this over here. And I realize that it might not, I don't even know what the challenges are, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's starting a fly shop or changing careers, or I don't know, so many people like today, they're like, I just want to be a creator, right? Like that's a thing now. You can be a creator and you can do things that you really want to do. And I don't know. I think that is like a place where I think that you could offer a lot of advice to somebody that has this desire to do something that they know is going to be more meaningful. Like, what do you tell somebody like that?
Well, dude, I mean, I think it's why people have such deep admiration for you. And I think it's why a lot of you have so many passionate like listeners for like what you do, because you've walked that walk and you've walked that journey. And I think the amazing thing is I think you stoke that flame for people. I think you start to invite that, you know what I mean?
Well, I want to with the podcast, and I want to by getting other people like yourself who have done it and tell that story. And then I know that people have said, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. And they do it.
Yeah, completely. And I think it does, man. It just requires a tremendous amount of courage. Like even right now, I'm in a position where like I have this desire to create some golf content that has social impact for the foundation. And dude, it just takes that little shitty committee in your head jumps in there and goes like, dude, why would you do that? That's so risky. You can play it safe, Tom. You don't need to start a podcast or a fishing show. Like, bro, you don't need to do that. But eventually, dude, it wins out. And if you challenge that enough, you challenge that committee enough, and you really go down and you listen to this thing, that's where juice happens, And so for me, it's like
this thing being your gut, right?
Your gut and your heart and your soul and your spirit, and the thing that is like more powerful than anything that this thing can conjure up. This thing just writes shitty first drafts all the time for me, man. I gotta throw it out, Yeah. I know you. I know you know.
Well, it's so interesting because the more that I learn about, the mind, the mind-body connection, how powerful your mind is, and how it can overcome so many other things or send you down. It can be such a positive thing that you can use your mind for the most powerful thing for propelling you to whatever success you want, or it can be the worst thing ever. It can tell you all these bad things and keep you from doing things. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize there's a lot more to learn about it. In so many ways, it seems very simple. Like just turn the voice off. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to do it, and it's another thing to do it once, and then it's
Yeah.
another thing to do it constantly all the time and to be aware of it. I don't know. You seem to have been on that journey. Like when was it for you that you started to realize that? Was the accident a part of it, or does it come later as you start to mature? Like when do you start
Yeah, man. I mean,
that?
a lot of it, like the accident was the jumping off point, and but then like again, like the journey wasn't linear, but the grief and all of the unresolved stuff. I mean, I'm a firm believer in like trauma and all of that is stored within the body, like on a very cellular level. And so for me, I had to do a lot of work to move that stuff out of my body and then go into a place of like honoring my body, right? Like, bro, my body was a really unsafe and painful place to be for a long time and a lot of points in my life. You know what I mean? And so, like you said, like the mind is just but a tool, but it's like I over rely upon my mind to do all kinds of stuff when I need to just slow down and get in touch with that mind body connection and make that journey from head to heart. And when I'm in a place of clarity with like, I can get alignment between heart as like the starting point and then the mind, the cognitive element that can figure out all the logistical steps. Like that's a powerful a powerful combination. But then when I can also connect with like-minded people like you that are saying the same thing I'm saying, that's looking to go to the moon, bro, that you don't want to see a TRJT combo because it's going to be something special. You know what I mean?
Well, I find I want to know about like what kind of partners that you've been able to develop because when you talk about that, like you're getting around like-minded people, you're developing a team. A lot of that team is the donors and the people that are supporting, and probably the families themselves. But what has been I mean, it's just kind of an interesting kind of path that you're walking here because you're having to learn about legislation. You're having to learn about how politics work. You're having to learn about donors and develop and building a foundation. And it's like it's not enough to just be somebody with a purpose. Like you still have to learn all this other stuff, which is like a lot. What do you think has been the one or some of the challenges? Like, is it the donors? Is it the legislation? Like what, or all of it?
Yeah, you know the one that that I'm challenged with the most right now, the most clear and present one is like having a very clear vision as to what it is that I want to do. My challenge is like how do I get it out to more people? Because when I tell people about what we do and why we do it and the impact it has, it's like the easiest sell in the world. I mean, probably easier to sell that than salt off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's, shout out salt off. But like, it's like, how do I get in front of more people? How do I, and so that's why I'm so grateful for opportunities like this, is it just exposes me to a group of people that had no idea about this, that then in turn say, man, I'm really interested in this. I believe in what you're doing. But I've got a really good group of people around me that believe in what I'm doing because it can get deflating sometimes when you don't make the progress as quickly as you think you should be.
Yeah.
And that's my self-limiting thing is always that of like some iteration of you're not doing enough.
Mm.
And so I've got to have people around me that can help me to do more, but also can help me to slow down and say, man, look, stop at the family reunion, look at these 250 people and see what you have done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who are those people for you?
Man, I've got to admit, my family's a big one in that they're so deeply involved in JTF and it's supported me and been with me since day one. I've got a great group of people within my board that are like-minded people that want to see us succeed, want to see me succeed, that support me. I've got great friends in my life that I can connect with, not just on the like logistical, like this is how we need to approach Blue Cross to show them that the fiscal net, like not just to tackle the logistical, but that I can sit with quietly and be real with and authentic with and say like, hey man, I'm fearful of this. I don't feel capable here. Can you just support me and love me through this? And they're like, hell yeah. That's really powerful for me. And that's taken me a long time to develop that community. And I still yearn for more people like that, but that we've made a start. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool. What about the the progression of limbs themselves, like with AI and so many advancements in materials and in technology? Like where do you sit with that? Is it are we looking at a lot more advancements coming up with AI, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity within utilizing AI, 3D printing. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. It's something that is always on my radar is like innovation. My thing, like I think the trend for a lot of sort of innovative prosthetic related folks is that of like doing things that can link sort of brain waves and the functionality of the prosthesis. It's great, but it's $300,000. I
Yeah.
want to make stuff like as accessible as possible and dumb the tech down as much as possible so that it's more accessible so that I can go beyond the borders of the US and I can go to landmine torn countries or I can go to places where there's active war and provide prosthetic devices. I mean, like, the conflict, the Israeli Gaza conflict is like there are more amputees as a result of that conflict than like I think it's a huge number of people. And my thing is this, like I don't care where the kid, what flag they live under. It's like you're a kid that deserves access to a prosthetic. Like I'm going to support that. So for me, where I want to innovate is not in making stuff more sophisticated or that can more closely mimic the movement of an actual foot. It's like I want to make it accessible, durable, dependable, and make it more accessible. Like that's the innovation I'm really interested in.
I think that that's an interesting perspective on the availability of prosthetics, and I think it's kind of cool because I asked that because I do see like sometimes there's like stuff on Instagram or something, and it's like these more advanced hands and more advanced feet and legs and different things that they're creating, or like what Neuralink and all of this other stuff. But I like I can see your perspective of like that's great after we provide a prosthetic for as many people as possible. Then you could upgrade, I guess, or something. But getting them to as many people as possible is I can see why you're feeling that way as opposed to the technology, because you could have one of those hands or you could have 300 of something else.
Yeah, and that's just and that's not to like bash the people that are really innovating on that front, right? It's like let's have people
Sure.
that are pursuing it on both levels and both avenues, but um, we're this is a crazy stat. The Jordan Thomas Foundation is the largest purchaser of pediatric running blades in America,
Really?
which is insane. And so where I'm looking at is in bringing fabric, and this I feel okay saying this, bringing fabrication in-house. And so through
Mm-hmm.
strategic partnerships with people that do this, like how can we then in turn make this more affordable? How can we then make this kind of almost open source so that it is available to them? And how do we take that initiative to create these devices at a more affordable rate? So again, like accessibility, people can afford this stuff because I'm no longer willing to accept the reality that a family's going to have to sell a home to get a leg. Just
Yeah,
not
that
going to
is
do it, man.
rough.
Yeah, dude.
Well,
What?
as you move into that, my son-in-law is an engineer that just graduated from Auburn, and he his passion, while he's interested in building things and doing things like he's doing now, his passion is biomechanic engineering, like for prosthetics. And
Really?
he's super interested in that. And he's super smart, super bright kid. He has never lost a limb. I don't know that he knows anybody that's lost a limb, but he's fascinated by that. And he's long said that that's what he wants to do. So there you go.
Whoa.
I'll hook
Whoa.
you up.
Yeah, connect us, man. I'll get him in my network of people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, I don't know. I just think it's interesting when just things connect like that. I don't know. Maybe there's something there, but maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so a lot of this conversation has been pretty heavy, like it has been, and I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story. And I don't know when, I know that earlier when you were closer to the accident, you were probably telling your story a whole lot. and
Mm.
I don't know when the last time. I mean, do you do interviews like this a lot to tell your story over and over again, or
Yeah, I
have you
do.
kind of moved on?
Yeah, it's starting to morph a little bit more away from the accident and that day. But it's hard to avoid it. I mean, it's like that's the origin
Right.
point. Like the origin point is
Yeah.
that all of this amazing stuff has been born out of something unimaginably tragic and awful. And so, yeah, I mean, I do like tell that story quite a bit. I think what's changed is that I'm able to tell that story from a place of like deep authenticity, not what I think you want to hear. And so there's like
Mm.
some relief for me of like I can share about it openly and what my real experience was, and I can share about the really dark times after my accident when I'd wake up thinking I was in the water still, and the
Mm.
tears and the pain and the trauma and the grief and like all of that stuff, and how that's been a part of my journey too, that it wasn't just sunshine and puppy dogs and smooth sailing. Like, man, it was a battle, and it just at times it still is a battle, you know.
So that when you were waking up, you would wake up and you would feel like you were in the water again, like out of a bad dream.
Yeah, man. I'd wake
And
up
how
and be
long
like,
did it take
I'm
you to get over that? Do you still have that?
no, not anymore. But yeah, I would say probably for a solid 6 months, like there was like once a week I would wake up from like a dream and I would like literally think I was in the water. And yeah, I mean it just speaks to the power of like trauma and yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I mean that. Have you? I mean your work has been mostly for children. Have you ever thought about like military or other, or are you going to stick kind of on this path of children?
Yeah, I think for the foreseeable future at least it will stay within just the pediatric stuff because that's a niche that we've got that's underserved, that's unserved. There's a lot of good organizations within the VA and
Mhm.
outside of the VA that are doing good stuff. I'm really pleased that from the military guys that I know, which I know quite a few, is that the VA does a really tremendous job of giving them access and has finally supported them, which for a while was not the reality, man. Like we were treating our kids like we were not giving them the stuff they needed, and that was like unacceptable. And so I'm really proud of the VA. I think is does a really phenomenal job with the limb loss community with those kids that are coming back that have, made such an amazing sacrifice, tremendous sacrifice. And it's like, let's take care of our kids, you know?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's wild too that they are kids now that we're old enough to like look at them and it's like these boys are like children, you know? It's
I mean,
wild.
they a lot of them are, and
Yeah.
children are 18-year-olds. Like
Yeah.
that's that you're exactly right, and that also makes me feel super old. Um, but I am old. I get older every day. I just had a birthday. Um, so, what I want to do is I want to try to finish up with some hot seat questions, which
Yeah.
are just quick questions that kind of help people to understand you a little bit more outside of the accident and the things that we've talked about now. So,
Cool, man.
all right, you ready? We're going to do the hot
Yeah.
seat.
Let's do it.
All right, you prefer sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
River, lake, or ocean?
Lake.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Oh, I hate to say this. Energy drink.
Mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
Olympic or Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Oh, summer.
Drive or fly?
Oof. Fly. Let's get there and let's get after it.
Okay. The Office, Friends, or Parks and Rec?
Oh, Parks and Rec for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good choice. Um, would you change what happened to you if it meant the foundation never existed?
Hell no.
Favorite state for golf?
Oh, dude, that's really good. California, Northern California, just unreal.
One golf course you want to play?
Pine Valley,
Where's that?
New Jersey. It's unreal.
New
Look it
Jersey?
up. Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
unreal.
Gotcha. Best win in your golf career?
Uh, U.S. Adaptive Open.
Where was
Big
that taking place?
Pinehurst.
Oh, all right. Nice.
Yeah, that was big.
A movie that makes you laugh.
My first one is Step Brothers or
Yeah, that,
Airplane. Airplane for the
listen,
throwback
both of those
audience.
are good choices, and those are two of the most popular ones on the hot list. Text or call,
Call,
Instagram or Twitter.
Instagram.
One thing you're afraid of.
Uh, my first thing was spiders, and then like just not waking up every day and just getting after it.
Getting after it.
Just
I
get
love it.
after it. Oh,
And then if all of everything were to go away right now, and nobody had anything to remember you by, and you could just leave one little note, what would you want people to remember about Jordan Thomas?
just the sheer beauty of like being of service, being kind, being loving to others, and the fulfillment that ultimately that gives us. That ultimately we're put on this earth to do something way beyond ourselves. And if we can dedicate ourselves and our lives to being of service, to supporting people that can't do it otherwise, you're gonna you're gonna have a good life.
I love it, man. I'll tell you what, Jordan, I really enjoyed having you on the podcast, and want to thank you for what you're doing, being of service to so many different people. And, you know, I'm in your corner, man. If I can ever help you do anything, and I would love to come to one of your events. I would
Oh,
love it. I think it would be
ooh,
so awesome. And
yeah,
it would probably stoke the fire within anyone to
yeah,
make you want to do more and contribute
yeah,
more and help more.
yeah. Thank
So
you,
we'll try to
brother.
make that happen.
I appreciate it so much, and same. I'm in your corner forever and always, and I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity and for what you do. Like it, don't ever discount the power that you have in people's lives. Like you change people's lives through this avenue, and so I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. And if people want to help you, if people want to follow you, if people want to help your foundation, I should have put this in the very beginning, but what would they do if they want to support you?
Yeah, JordanThomasFoundation.org. Instagram, we have an amazing Instagram account that's really just good stuff that shares the story of what we do. Come be a part of it. Come check it out, and I dare you to not be compelled or moved to be a participant in some capacity, whatever that may be.
Awesome. I love it. We'll put all that in the show notes, and hopefully people will reach out. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, brother.
keep doing it. Keep getting after it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Appreciate you.